Yeah, Damien will be back with you tomorrow. It's Maria in today, and I've already mentioned some of the things that we're going to be talking about, but also going to be talking about, as I said, that Love Island pout and the fillers, and the poor things trying to cry with a face full of Botox in their 20s. And has the use of all these tweakments gone too far, with reports that 12-year-olds think they need them? And when is it all going to stop? We're also going to be having another look at some of the contenders in the Waterford Business Awards. And I want you to tell me the most frustrating things you experience when applying for jobs. Is it not getting a response, not getting enough time to show what you're capable of in an interview? Should you have to wait 5 months for your future employers to decide if they want you or not? What is the most frustrating thing in job applications that you find? If you wouldn't mind letting me know on that. 083 3333 975 is how you get in touch with the programme. You can use WhatsApp for that, or you can call Audrey on 051 872248 if you want to have your say on whatever we are talking about. And we are kicking off with online abuse. It's a very, very timely topic at the moment. Anyone who's been online in the last couple of days won't have failed to have seen the level of vitriol aimed at politicians, aimed at people who won their seat, aimed at people who lost their seat, aimed at people who ran, aimed at people who didn't run. It just seems to be an absolute free-for-all in terms of what goes online. And you'd have to wonder, how do you teach children not to do it if you know they see adults doing that type of thing? Brendan Halligan of Children's Group Link is in studio with me. I suppose you can wear kind of two hats on this, not only the Children's Group Link hat. Brendan, you're very welcome, thanks for coming in, but also with John, your brother, like he's been subject to vitriol online at times as well. So you can kind of wear two hats on this one.
Yeah, good morning, Maria. Well, I suppose in terms of the political end of it, okay, I would have been John's Director of Elections for maybe best part of 10 or 12 years, right, with a team. And there would always be some sort of, negativity on online social media, which politicians accept in general. If you're criticising or challenging their stance on things and their position on things, which that's what they put themselves forward for. But it's gone to a different level now. And now John is one of the few that is tough. He could take a lot of what was going on or just ignored it or blocked it, right? And it multiplied when he went in, with Fine Gael in as a junior minister. But some of the things that were being said, I mean, just before, when he announced his retirement, there was one comment went up online saying, like, you did nothing, you didn't get the 24 cardiac care. I hope you have a heart attack and drop dead before you get your retirement pension. Now, like, I have had a history. There was a politician that was elected some time ago. She's now gone out of politics in Waterford, and some of the abuse that woman got was just beyond reprehensible. Now, it just makes you wonder where society is going, right? And you'd wonder why people do this, right? It's faceless evil, really, and a lot of the people are doing it. Like, I think it was Paddy Galler a long time ago made a statement. I know several people said it since then, but the whole statement about empty vessels make the most noise. So if you have a big drum and you beat it and there's nothing inside, and I find a lot of these internet trolls, these people, have very little to offer society, have very few solutions other than to be negative and to criticise and to personalise stuff online. So really they're cowards, because they hide behind a screen. They hide behind false profiles, a lot of them, and they just shout abuse and don't have anything to offer. Now, I mean, you look at Mary Butler. I wouldn't, in terms of politics, she wouldn't align with my politics. But Mary Butler is a nice person. Mary Butler, I'm sure, is trying her best, right? But what has happened to her is outrageous. She has a family. This woman has a family. Or politicians have families. But some of these people don't seem to understand, or if they do, they just don't care. And they think
it's kind of different strands of it, though, Brendan. Like, there's people who are doing it on purpose shitstir, for want of a better word. There's a malice behind it. Then there's people who maybe are genuinely hurt by something that happened, or they feel genuinely let down, and in the spur of the moment they type in a comment. And then there are people who are just, as you say, empty vessels, and they'd never have the nerve to say it. They're just getting in with the rabble going, oh yeah, like she's this, that, he's horrible, he's this, I hope he does this. And they're not even thinking about it, they're that thick.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd agree with that one, the last point you made. Look, there's people get angry, people get upset, and I think, you know, you could see that in the results of the general election in terms of people voted with their feet. They did vote for change. People were angry and upset, and that's fine. But there's a thing called personal responsibility with everything, okay? And there's a level and a line that you don't cross, okay? People are absolutely entitled to make comment. They're entitled to criticise. They're entitled to ask questions. But I always say, when we talk to teenagers in GroupLink, and when I talk to people, I say, before you open your mouth, engage your brain and think about the effects your comments might make on a family member or somebody that's completely innocent, right? Think about that. Lots of these people have children. They have partners, they have wives, their husbands, you know, and they are impacted as well. It is not okay ever to abuse somebody, to encourage someone to self-harm, to make fun of somebody because of their disability or their race or their colour. If in society we begin to accept that and normalise that, we're finished. We're finished. We may as well give up. And, you know, people like Donald Trump have a lot to answer for. A leader of our free society, carrying on in the way that he carries on Twitter and the comments that he makes. But I think there's a responsibility here now with a lot of people. There's a responsibility with political parties. There's a responsibility with companies. You know, there's comments go up about politicians, and then maybe 5 hours later, there's a comment from the TD or the person who has responsibility for the page saying, oh, that shouldn't have gone up. Kind of tend to be a bit slow about reacting. Leave it up and see you know what kind of traction it gets, and then make a comment, say that shouldn't have gone up. We need to be more proactive in terms of this, because there are people losing their lives. I have the statistics here. There are young men and women, there are teenagers who are losing their lives and taking their own lives because of this kind of behaviour, this outrageous personalising abuse that goes on. And, you know, I have a big problem with people that share images, like the death of this young lad up in Drogheda. I spoke publicly on this in all the schools, right? 17. Okay, now we can have a debate another day about the rights and wrongs of this young lad, right? And how he got into, you know, all sorts of criminality. The fact is he became a victim, right? And then his family became a victim. But as part of my work, I was shown a post that was shared, that was sent to his sister. And people sharing images of violence or sharing images of people making fun of people because they're different colour. And women are at the brunt of this, by the way. Statistics tell us that women get it more than men, okay?
Which is baffling to me.
But you see, this is cowardly behaviour, Maria. So, like, people have to stop sharing these images, have to stop sharing these comments. It's bad enough the person that's behind it putting these comments out. But when we're sharing it, we're complicit. So there's no point saying, I just sent it on to a friend because I wanted to show her how horrifying it was. You shouldn't send it on to anyone. You should say, do not send me these messages. Do not send me these images. Because that could be your son or daughter at some point. It could be your husband or wife or your mother or your father or someone that you love is getting this treatment.
And I don't think, I don't know if it's a lack of empathy or people are just thoughtless in some of the instances. Because I don't think the majority of people who post horrible comments and angry and you didn't do this and I hope you die and all this, I don't think they would have the balls to say that to anyone to their face.
Well, you're absolutely right. And this is why we call it faceless evil, right? Because you have people that are hiding behind keyboards or hiding behind walls, hiding behind false profiles and hiding behind other people that are making these comments. And this is why society as a whole, we have to stand up to this. The companies that run Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube have to take more responsibility here. There's no doubt about it. And I know that there's new legislation due to be passed.
But I want to hurry up.
Well, you see, like lots of things, it's not important enough, okay? And but individuals, we need to get to a point where individuals are held accountable, where people are held accountable for the comments that they make. So if it's a racist comment, a homophobic comment, it's something to do with somebody's religion or their sexuality or their political views, if it goes beyond the line where it becomes personal, where it becomes abusive, where it encourages somebody to self-harm, we'll all be up in arms someday. I'm telling you now, there's going to be an incident occur where somebody, either a politician or somebody else, there's going to be where somebody is going to take their own life or something dramatic happens, and everyone will be crying out and everyone will be phoning this programme and saying it's outrageous, where are we gone society? It'll be too late for that family, and it's had to be too late for hundreds of families.
I wonder, do people ever think twice? Like, you and I could have a row now and I could say something horrible to you because I'm in a temper, and I go away and I'm really angry with you and I feel that you let me down and you're horrible and I just wish ill on you because I'm in a temper. And then I go away and I cool off and I come back to you and go, Brendan, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I wonder, does anybody ever think to send a message to somebody going, look, I said that to you, I took down the comment, I was just in an awful, I was hurt and I was angry, but I shouldn't have said it and I'm sorry.
There's some people do it, but not enough. And the difference is between me and you having an argument is we're in the heat at the moment. A lot of the time people who are posting stuff are thinking about it before they're doing. They have time to consider what they're typing in on their keyboard, what they're putting in on their phones, and time to reflect. And what I'm saying to people is...
limited vocabulary.
Exactly. But this is what the point I'm making about people. You know, you have a lot of uneducated people, and I don't mean that in a way in terms of where people's geographical upbringing. I'm talking about people that don't educate themselves in the reality of where we are in life. Absolutely, hold people to account. That is okay to hold someone to account. It is not okay to have a go off someone because of the way they look, because, to encourage them to self-harm, because of their sexuality, because they might have a religious belief, because they have a view different to you. You do not have the right to abuse them and encourage self-harm or encourage abuse or encourage violence. There's people online encouraging violence against other people. What kind of mentality is that?
It's also, do you know what I find? And I find this very... disturbing as well. You get, share this as much as possible. This fella strangled a kitten or something. It's a joke started off by friends or something, but people don't even bother trying to check whether it's true or not. They just keep sharing, and as you say, somebody's life is completely ruined because of a Facebook campaign or some sort of social media campaign.
Well, this comes back. We talk about this in youth work, about personal responsibility, okay? And this is what it comes back to. It's easy to kind of be indifferent towards somebody else's pain, right? But what I'm saying to people is before you share something, before you like something, before you pass it on, have a think about the impact it's going to have on that person, the potential impact, and on their family. And think about it, if it was you or if it was your loved one or someone close to you, you wouldn't share it. So if you have the forethought not to share something that you know is really bad about somebody else, well then, about your loved one, well then you shouldn't share it about someone you don't know. Now I want to be clear about this. People are open to criticism. You know that social media is very good in terms of and giving people a voice. But there's a line that's drawn, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing it increasingly with young people. The young people we work with. I went into a school recently, and I was talking about this, and somebody stood up and said, "But they're all at it. All the politicians are at it. Some of the politicians are at it. Some of the people associated with politicians. There's people online abusing other people, but yet teenagers are getting a hard rap for it.
Yeah.
When it's become normalised behaviour now to just abuse somebody or to share something that you shouldn't.
And for the love of God, if you're going to say something nasty, at least do your research and find out if the thing that you're about to kick off on actually happened, and just wait for a few days to see you actually complaining about some fact rather than something that somebody else has told you happened.
But that's the nastiness of it. You see, people they're looking for a way to get at somebody. And they don't care. They really actually don't care whether it's true or not. They convince themselves because it suits them that this is good to put out there. And what we're doing as a society, we're glorifying violent, abusive, negative behaviour. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough, and people need to be held to account for it.
OK, Brendan, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for coming in. That is Brendan Halligan of Children's Group Link there on that very timely topic of online abuse. 083 333 975 for your texts and comments, or call 051 872248 back after these. You are welcome back to the programme. Now I have Sarah Benson on the line. She's with Women's Aid because a man has been convicted. He's the first person to be convicted of coercive control. He harassed his ex-girlfriend or his girlfriend by phoning her almost 6,000 times over 3 months. He made her show wherever she was on FaceTime to make sure she was where she said she was, and he just terrorised her. And coercive abuse, it's the first time coercive abuse has been used as the reason for a conviction. Sarah Benson, as I said, with Women's Aid, and she's on the line now. You're very welcome to the programme, Sarah.
Good morning. Hi.
It's hard. Is it hard, I'll ask you, to quantify what coercive abuse is?
Well, it is and it isn't. It is something that has always been an absolutely fundamental part of the experience of victims of domestic violence and abuse, because domestic violence and abuse are not single acts of either physical violence or psychological violence. Domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviour used by one person to exert power and control over another, usually a current or a former partner. So what that is lots of different tactics and behaviours which have a cumulative effect of isolating the other person, wearing them down, dehumanising them, controlling them. What coercive control is now the effectively the codification of that in law, because our criminal justice system tends to focus on a single incident, so a single physical assault or a single incident of criminal damage, whereas what this does is it actually takes all of those multiple acts, some of which on their own would not be seen as a criminal act. So phoning somebody is not a criminal act, but phoning them 6,000 times and also, making threats against them, and also, exerting the other, sometimes more subtle controlling behaviours. When you take them together as a package, that forms a very frightening picture, and now that is a criminal offence. So it is really landmark that just a year after this became a crime in law, we now have the first case actually reaching a conviction. And so for us as a frontline support service, it's really, really important to give that message out to those who are suffering from that kind of coercive controlling behaviour, to say this is a crime, it can be prosecuted, there is help there, and there are ways to try and track and map that behaviour so that you to help you make that case to show that full picture of what's going on, so that you can get justice and particularly safety, which is what we find most of the women we support want. It's not about criminalising someone, but they want to feel safe, and they really don't.
And this man, he was physically violent to this woman as well, but I'd say it's just as damaging if your entire world is controlled by somebody, so that even if they're not focused on you, you think they are. Like, it's almost, you get this sensation that everything you do, they're going to monitor. You couldn't make a wrong move, and it's pretty consistent. Would that come under coercive control as well?
Absolutely, it would. And I mean, I could not count the number of times that women speaking to the team on our national pre-phone helpline would say, I wish he would just hit me, because this is, what's going on is actually almost so much worse, because I feel completely controlled, and it is not just the case that they feel that this person is monitoring their every move. They are monitoring their every move. They are phoning them, they are watching them, they're asking them where they've been, they're verifying whether they've been where they said they are. We've had women talk about having their mileage checked, so that if she said she went to the supermarket, that they would measure to say, well, actually, did you go there? Did you go somewhere else? Everything down from the use of electricity in the house, controlling the finances, and then particularly controlling who she sees, because one of the key tactics of a domestic violence and abusive relationship, of coercive control, is to isolate the person who's targeted from those other people who could offer support and help, and also, be there to say, that's not usual behaviour. You are entitled to your own opinion. You're entitled to make your decisions. You're entitled to choose what you wear, where you go, if you work, if you don't work. So absolutely, it has a cumulative effect that can be absolutely devastating. It's referred to by some experts as a liberty crime, which I think is quite fitting, because basically it robs somebody from their sense of liberty and autonomy.
And it must be very easy, particularly in the early stages, to mistake it for like, he loves me so much that, he can't bear to be away from me, and he wants to know where I am, and he wants to be with me all the time. It must be very easy to be lulled into a false sense of, this man loves me so much, or this woman, or whoever's doing it, in the early stages of it, before it gets to be like, oh, hold on, I can't do anything here.
Yeah, you're quite correct. It is a very incremental way of abusing somebody, and that is part of the tactic, and also one of the key tactics is to blame the victim, for why. If you didn't do this, then I wouldn't be asking, and, to try and breed mistrust in them and make them self-doubt is a huge component. But I would often say, if you go on a date with somebody, and on your first date they, start telling you, how they think you should dress, what you should wear, start questioning you about all your past relationships, there's rarely going to be a second date. So, this is a very manipulative form of abuse, and therefore it is incremental, and it is a wearing down. And I have personally spoken to women who would say, I can't actually believe I am where I am now. I was, very independent, really outgoing. I had a wide circle of friends. I had a good job, but now I feel like I'm a prisoner in my own home, and I feel like a shell of the person I used to be. And what I would again say for anybody listening, if you feel like, you're in a relationship where any of those things resonate at all, please do reach out. There is help there. There's local services in Waterford. Our national free phone helpline is 1-800-341-900, and that's 24/7. And we also have all of the details of all of the services around the country. If you're wondering what coercive control looks like, we have a little resource on our website, which is womensaid.ie, and you just put in the search for coercive control. It's a user-friendly guide. Remember, this is a crime, and it is never the fault of the person who is being targeted.
And how do you keep track of it, though? I mean, if he's going to take your phone, you can't be taking screenshots of like texts and emailing them to yourself or something, like, because he has access to all areas of your life. How do you keep a note of what's happening so that you have proof, or is it something that your word has to be taken on?
That's such a great question, and I know that when we would support women who are trying to make the case, not just the criminal case for coercive control, I would say these are the kinds of things that we would have been supporting women who may be applying for protective orders, like safety orders. So where, again, there isn't strong evidence of physical abuse, but there's huge psychological, emotional abuse and controlling behaviours. We would have been, discussing with women safe ways, and safety is absolutely key. So if you have any sense that the person has access to your phone, for example, and there are ways to assess your digital safety. And again, we have a little guide to that on our website. If you think your phone has been hacked, for example. But it's sometimes what women will do is, or any victim will do is, they may have a trusted friend or family who may help them maintain a journal, who they may forward things on to, who may keep things for them. Sometimes people will keep it in their work if they're in a work environment which is secure. The key thing is just to assess whether it is safe to keep information. But the way to build the picture of what's going on is around showing that pattern, having on this date this happened, and then if you take that with the next day this happened, and then you start to see the pattern emerge. So yes, finding ways to track it, but finding ways to track it all safely is really important.
And somebody's just sent in a text here. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this or not, but would this be able to be used if a parent was like this with an adult child?
Unfortunately, coercive control as an offence does not cover abuse of parents by adult children. But what I would say to that person who's reaching out is that the Domestic Violence Act does cover protective orders, which are orders that can be sought through the family courts, where somebody, where they may make the case of feeling in fear or feeling threatened by and intimidated by an adult child who may be in the home with them, and they can apply for a protective order, and that order basically states that person must desist in that behaviour, and if they don't, then they risk being charged with a breach of that order. So coercive control as a specific offence only covers current or former intimate partners, but the protective orders do cover other family relationships.
Sarah, thanks a million for talking to me.
Thank you very much, Marie.
See you. Bye-bye. That's Sarah Benson there of Women's Aid. And if that is happening to you, there is help out there. Women's Aid, you can get in touch with Women's Aid. There are other organisations that will be able to help you. Whoever's doing this to you doesn't love you. You don't deserve it. It's not your fault. None of those things. And now you have a point in law which will enable this hopefully to stop, and you can get on with your life and be free of people who would treat you like that. 083 33 975 051 872248. I'll be back with some of your comments after these. You are welcome back to the programme. I'm going to bring some of your comments to you now. And by the way, we did invite Mary Butler to come on the programme this morning. I would have liked to have spoken to Mary herself, but she's left this matter in the hands of the Gardaí, and she didn't want to come on and talk about it, so that's fair enough, can't make her. But that's why we're not talking to Mary Butler, just so for those of you wondering why I'm not talking to her. John says some of the online abuse directed at politicians here in Waterford in the last few days is scandalous, really vile, obnoxious comments without thinking about the hurt they are causing, and seem to think it's okay because they're sitting at home and typing the nastiness rather than saying it face to face. Yeah, that's what I don't get. And I do understand people are passionate and they can be hurt over something and they can be angry over something. But to actually commit it to a text, and not just... And I think this is the difference between nowadays, is that before you would have turned around to your friend and had a right go off them. Now you have access to the person themselves, and you have a right cut off them in your anger, and in some cases it might be genuine anger, but in an awful lot of cases this is just people jumping on a bandwagon about something that they really don't know the detail about. And I think that if that's the kind of keyboard warrior you are, if you're not driven by anger and hurt, if you're driven by just everyone's having a go here, I'm going to have a go too, you really need to have a little word with yourself, because you need to question your life choices. Now, somebody who I'm sure would agree with some of what I've said there is with me in studio. It's Leslie Hughes, who's the founder of Laicus, which is the children's mental health charity. On the Warrior Soul project is what we're going to be talking about now. And I also have Michelle Haberlin in studio with me, who's a musician and also works very closely. Just move over a little bit closer to that microphone, Michelle, please. So you're both very welcome. Thanks very much for coming in. Children's mental health, it's a shame that we even have to talk about it, isn't it? Like, your childhood should be a time when nothing should touch you, things that your parents can reassure you about, and that's all the worry you have, and that's not the same. It's not what happens these days, unfortunately.
No, it's definitely not. And I suppose it's always, just like physical health, mental health has always been there, and it is always going to be there. But I do think it's a lot harder for kids now, as you were saying, with the whole cyber side of things. They've got their Snapchat, they've got not even Facebook anymore, because everything is so instantaneous with them now, with the Snapchats and Instagram and everything, that they have loads of pressures to live up to. And even with the younger kids, the world is a much more complex place now. I know we sound like what our grannies would say to us, but it is a lot more complex now. And even it manifests with children in so many different ways, that a child might, like my own little lad this morning, not want to go to school because his tummy aches. But there's no tummy ache really there. They're a little bit anxious about something that's going on. And I think the whole point of the Warrior Soul project is that Michelle and Ciara O'Rourke would be two of her facilitators that go into the school to do the workshops. It's to kind of hone in on that. We would go into kids from junior infants right up, so that they know how to put a name on that, a name on, and just to understand that, we're all going to have these feelings, we're all going to have these emotions, but it's okay to go through the emotions, okay to feel it. Like the old thing years ago, boys don't cry, you're a boy, don't be acting like a girl.
Be a big boy.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine the damage that could do to a child that has a genuine worry. And to them it might be something small, but it is an actual genuine worry to them. So before those kind of manifest into something that has an effect on their whole day, at least if they know what that emotion is and they have the tools to cope with it, things will be a little bit easier for them.
And when you're in the schools, Michelle, do you find that they're hungry to be able to deal with this, or do they expect their parents to fix the world for them? Or
I found they were so open to learn. They were really good fun about it. And I thought, say we went to a boys' school, I thought maybe they might have been more closed off about it. But actually, they were supportive of each other. They were kind. We start by kind of naming the emotions, and even say from a small age, like we would do a diagram of different faces and what's the feeling, and being able to name that feeling is. They were so good, and once they recognised that, and then we did little bits of things. Say someone might walk into a classroom in a bad mood and they might ignore somebody, and that you might take that on, as your child might take that on themselves. Oh, they're upset with me, but really that other person has something going on at home, and it's learning to recognise what's you and what isn't you really. And so they were really receptive to learning, and they were open to it. And I think mental health is a kind of a positive conversation that we're having a lot now, and children are more kind of used to words like positivity, mindfulness. It's not so uncommon anymore.
Can we talk about it too much though?
I don't think so.
What I'm saying.
No, I don't. I think, well, look, it depends on the way you talk about it. Like, we would not, and even on the Facebook page, I don't put any negative posts or anything like that on it, and I wouldn't ever put if there was something disastrous happen with funding for mental health, I would never bring any of that into it, and we don't talk about those kind of things. We kind of go from the other side of it, where it's the positivity side of it, and I say positivity, and you think to yourself, mental health, positivity, how can they go together? But it's the positive approach to it, and I think if you normalise talking about something, it will encourage them to talk about it. And I think the thing with the girls when they went into the school, the fact that they sat in a safe space where they'd had fun little icebreakers and they were all sitting around talking, like you felt like they were more encouraged to talk. And that's the whole point. And to give them the freedom to actually say, do you know what, I'm not feeling great today. If they went into school and they were after stubbing their toe that morning, they'd go in and they'd be telling their friends, my toe's killing me. Why can't they go in and say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit down today. And what was lovely with the feedback that the girls, when they were coming back with the evaluations from the workshops, was that some of the kids, when they were doing the affirmations with each other, some of them didn't know something positive about themselves, and some of the other kids, weren't they, coming in? And
they filled in the blanks. So if someone didn't have anything nice to say about themselves, the room
I think
of
that's a
children
lovely
were
thing to
shouting
do,
at them,
because it gives you a different perspective on yourself, even for adults. Like, it gives you something that you never kind of realised about yourself that somebody else has seen in you, and it kind of goes, geez, I'm actually nice.
Yeah. So you could have one kid, you could have one kid there that something might have gone on at home that morning, or a family member mightn't be well, and the fact that they were sitting in that circle and couldn't think of something positive about themselves, and their peers were able to say something. I mean, that boost that's magic.
Yeah.
Those little things are magic. So the more that they are encouraged to be that way with each other.
Because I think when you're a child, and there's so much more pressures on children these days than there was years ago, but when you're a child, your whole world is yourself and your parents, and how you think like everything relates to you, and your parents are responsible for everything because you're small, and if the world's right, then you go to your parents and they're going to fix it. But suppose I'm afraid to tell them what this is, and suppose they think I'm stupid, and it all kind of is very internalising for some children, I think.
Absolutely. And that's another thing, and that'd be another part of it, wouldn't it, of who you're safe people to talk to. And that's, that you to give them that strength that they know that they can talk to people, say their teacher, or is that another?
That is another part of it, who we trust and who we can talk to, so they know that there's a network of people open to them. If they didn't feel they could trust a certain adult, that there is other supports that they do have.
So, Michelle, you're responsible for getting Susan O'Neill to come to the launch.
I have roped her in. Thank you, Susan. She's listening. Thanks, Susan.
Morning, Susan. So what else is happening at the launch, and when and where is it?
So, tomorrow night in the Vintage Parlour Tea Rooms, the doors are at 7 o'clock. And myself and my friend Sylvia, we're two peas in a pod, and we're just going to start the evening around 7:30. Sylvia is a beautiful piano player and singer, so we'll just do a few few tunes for the first hour, kind of let everyone warm up and have some cocktails or mocktails or whatever you fancy. And then we have our Battle of the Bands winner, Tara Kennedy. She is amazing. This girl,
she's a lovely singer.
16, yeah. She's incredible.
And she writes her songs.
Oh, she writes all her own songs. This girl is... She's like a baby Frank Zappa. Like, she's unreal. We can't wait to see what she does going forward. But she's going to do some songs for us then before Susan. So she'll be Susan's support. And then we have Susan on around 9 o'clock.
And can anybody go? Or
yeah. Well, the tickets are €10. There's tickets are available on Eventbrite. Myself and Michelle also have tickets. There might be a few available on the night on the door. But yeah, €10 in, and I think
it's a great name, Warrior Soul Project.
The Warrior Soul. Yeah. I remember the first time when I was meeting Martin Matthews from Shine, to when I was thinking about setting up Lakers, and he said to me, "Who's the hippie? Who came up with the name?" The Warriors. I was like, maybe 20 years ago. But it is, and that was the whole. That is all part of it. It's that they find that warrior within them, and I know it does sound, but that's what we're giving them, the ability and the strength and the skills to find their inner warrior, that they can actually help themselves with it.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
We bring in a yoga pose, the Warrior 2 move, which you kind of stand like a surfboard and looking out of your fingers, but you breathe in deeply, and we get their kids to repeat, "I am strong," and it's beautiful. Everyone lifts up a couple of inches taller before they leave the room.
So you've been listening to Leslie Hughes and Michelle Haberlin from Laicus, and that is happening on 7 p.m. in the Vintage Parlour Tea Rooms, and you can hear Susan O'Neill and everything. So thanks very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having us in. Thank you.
No bother. 083 3333 975 for your text, 051 8722 484. Your phone calls back after these. You are welcome back to the programme. This caller says it's absolutely disgraceful what's been going on Facebook for the past week or so, to see grown adults carrying on like this as abhorrent keyboard warriors. Besides our own local representatives getting abuse, Brian Cowan's family spoke about Brian's recovery after his very serious stroke, and it was unbelievable, the comments that went up. I was so upset over it. I was dreaming of it last night. I say, grow up, all of you Facebook faceless people. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I am ashamed to say I was from Waterford in Ireland with Carry On. That is from Bernie. Somebody else says, I was in a relationship for over 7 years and can relate to what that lady was saying about coercive control. It first started off, with little things like the type of clothes I was wearing, my makeup, the way I spoke, until eventually he had me isolated from my own family and had me convinced they weren't any good for me, had me dressing differently and behaving in a way to keep him happy. Of course, he was never happy. That's the element of control. Eventually, the relationship became physically abusive, and thankfully, after 7 years, I wised up and left. But the psychological damage is still there 6 years later. No one deserves for anyone to treat them like that, and they don't. It's And as I said at the start to Sarah, it must be very easy to think, oh, he's so passionate about me and he loves me so much that he just wants me all to himself. That's not normal behaviour, lads. It's just not. So that's a definite red flag if any of you are in that situation, and some of you saying that it's featuring in Coronation Street at the moment, the whole Jeff and Yasmin thing, and everyone's shouting at the TV going, look what he's doing to you. But it must be very difficult when you're in that situation to take a step outside yourself and realise that, this is completely wrong. Look at me, look at the way I'm behaving, look at the way he's behaving, and it's just, it's just wrong all round. Now, when you're applying for a job, and it's, there's apparently plenty of jobs, they're telling us, but if you're applying for a job, some employers are losing out on good people like yourself because they're taking too long to hire you, or they're doing stupid things, and just people are going elsewhere and getting sorted out elsewhere. Orla Moran is a manager with irishjobs.ie. You're very welcome to the programme, Orla.
Thanks very much for having me on this morning.
You're more than welcome. I think it's very frustrating for anyone applying for a job, because in some instances you think, like, nobody applies for a job they don't think they can do, really, in most cases, or they have some chance, but sometimes you don't even get an interview.
Yeah, I think it's first of all, I think it's very stressful when you are looking for a job, I suppose to start off on a positive note, there's lots of opportunities out there for job seekers. So on Irish Jobs Studies today, we have over 10,000 live roles. So there's plenty of opportunities out there for job seekers. But in the same vein, it's still a very difficult process for people when they do decide to look for a job. And I think one of the really interesting pieces that have come back from our surveys, we would have surveyed over 1,500 respondents, was that a huge proportion of job seekers are very dissatisfied with the lack of salary that's disclosed on a job description, along with the lack of communication from employers as well. So that's a common frustration where you apply for a job and you don't hear anything back, and you're thinking, has my application gone into a black hole, and kind of where am I?
And there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, and I think that one is really, I think that's I can understand why a company might decide not to disclose a salary. I mean, it's a very competitive market out there, and a lot of SMEs in particular are competing with big multinationals who have very deep pockets. So I understand from an employer's perspective, but it is very frustrating for a job seeker. But the one that I feel most strongly about, and it's one that's come up time and time again from our job seekers, is why aren't companies communicating back with me? I've gone to the effort of applying for a job on Irish Jobs Studies or elsewhere, directly through a company's, let's say, careers website, and they hear nothing back. And I think it's really worrying, because I think if you're a company, you have to look on every potential candidate as potentially an end customer. So you could have somebody who maybe uses your product or service. They're applying for a job, they don't hear anything back, and they're thinking, well, actually, the next time my renewal comes around, or if I have to consider another provider, they'll be left with a really negative feeling if you're not getting back to them. So I think you've always got to think of your people applying for your jobs as potentially an end customer as well. Treat them well is what we would always encourage our customer base to do. So we actively promote getting back to candidates across. We'd have over 1,000 companies that advertise on Irish Jobs Studies, and it's something we feel very strongly about, because, as I say, it's difficult for people when they decide to make the move to go through the process and not to hear anything back.
And I think it's just, you're quite right, it's just pure ignorance. Like, it can't take much to let somebody acknowledge receipt of their CV and tell them that the position is filled, or tell people, keep an eye on our website because we'll be saying when the position is filled, or something, and not just have people, because a lot of people are on job seekers and it can be quite expensive, trying to, even get a physical CV into somebody if that's what they want, and trying to show up for interviews, and then maybe getting 5 minutes in an interview and you didn't get a chance to show your best, and you just feel that maybe the job is already gone. I'd say that's a real killer, that they've already hired somebody and they're just going through the motions.
I think from the other piece coming back from the survey was that nearly 50% of job seekers said that they would like to see more face-to-face engagement. So I think probably what's happened, the landscape has changed very much over the last kind of 10, 15 years, because what you would have had many, many years ago was you would have had somebody who'd receive an application, a CV, and then they'd telephone the job seeker, and they'd get a feel for the personality, and kind of almost like a pre-screen to an interview, and that was the norm. Whereas now what you have is with the kind of the fast pace with technology now, and how it's changing is that an awful lot of companies will use filtering systems. So they'll have a system that will automatically kind of rank and filter applications when they come in. So you've kind of that human touch, or that human interaction isn't there like it used to be years ago, and it really does improve a company's I suppose management of their application process, but it does lose the communication.
At the end of the day, you have to work with somebody and interact with them and be a team or whatever whatever way the work situation is. It would kind of help if you had some sort of interaction with them that was positive.
Yeah. Absolutely, because then you're making a call just based on somebody's CV and their cover letter, and so having a telephone call with somebody, you could come away having a much different kind of viewpoint of the candidate, after having that telephone conversation with them. So maybe even if it's not a face-to-face interview, picking up the phone and having a conversation with them. But I think really the key thing for employers is to make sure that when somebody does go out of their way to apply for a job, you do have a standard, polite response, and like that, saying, thanks very much for your application, and tell them that look, we've placed a successful candidate, but we'll keep your CV on file, and something that makes them feel actually, I'm glad I applied. I wasn't successful this time, but I'll keep going. And I think that would mean an awful lot to a job seeker.
Orla, thanks a million for talking to me.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye. That's Orla Moran there, manager at irishjobs.ie. What is the thing that annoys you about applying for a job? You can let me know on 083 3333 975. Is it the fact that they maybe don't respond to you, or you didn't get any interview, or you went to a lot of effort and you just felt that the job was already gone when you got there? Let's have your thoughts on that. This texter says, in 2008, I applied for a job in Dungarvan. I know I froze at the interview and wasn't going to get it as a result, even though I knew I'd be well able for the job. I was told leaving the room by the two women conducting the interview I would know one way or the other by Friday if I got it. I'm still waiting for a phone call or letter. I think that's slightly different though, because if you didn't get the call to say you got the job on Friday, then you know you didn't get the job. You didn't get the job. At least there's something. But if they just go, we'll be in touch, and you think, oh, I could be in with the shot here, and you're waiting and they don't respond to you, or they don't acknowledge receipt of your CV. Thank you for taking the trouble to say that you would like to work with us, and we're going through them at the moment and we may contact you for interview, or just some class of manners. That's all people would be expecting.